All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to call number 2 in what we will call your level up journey. I hope you're as excited as I am today to dive into the topic. We have time management, goals, and accountability. Before we do, let's recap what we discussed last week. It was all about your why, discovering your why, the power of why, and visualizing your why. I can personally say from reading your whys that have been posted all over Facebook that you all have done a great job being vulnerable with yourself and uncovering that true north. As you continue on this journey, don't be afraid to keep digging deeper and deeper until you truly feel as though your why is personal, powerful, and pointed. We also introduced you to your first challenges, and it looks like a lot of you are already embracing them and having some fun with them. This week, I have Chase with me, and we are going to chat about time management, goals, and accountability. We will share with you some tips and tricks on all of these topics, and in true level up fashion, we will also share some challenges today.
Thank you, Joe, for having me on the call again. 2 weeks in a row. Man, I feel lucky. So hello, Level Up, and thanks again for including me on the call. So throughout the duration of Level Up, we're going to cover a variety of materials. So we're going to talk about the business, the product, introduce you to some great selling techniques like overcoming objections, leveraging three-way calls, and everything from prospecting to follow-up to closing. But before we get started on the specifics, it's important to lay the foundation which we'll build on for the next 11 weeks. The first brick in this foundation is time management, a phrase I'm sure we've all heard and we've even thrown around, but what does it really mean? Time management is all about planning and exercising conscious control over the amount of time you spend on specific activities, especially to increase effectiveness, efficiency, and productivity. I promise there will be no shortage of activities to complete as you move through Level Up and grow your RNF business. So today we'll give you some tips on how to make the most of your time spent on this business in order to maximize your results.
Awesome. Sorry to cut you off, Chase. Before we do that, I wanted to share with all of you a little bit of information. You guys might recognize this question I have on screen. It's from the survey that you filled out at the time you registered for Level Up. So when you first registered, we asked you if you work outside of Rodan and Field. 45% of you said you work full-time, 24% of you said you work part-time, and 31% of you said that Rodan and Field is your only job. And what's great is that no matter which category you fall into, managing your time wisely can take a lot of stress off of your plate. We also asked you how many hours you work your RNF business every week. 44% of you said you work your business between 5 and 10 hours every week. 35% of you said between 10 and 20 hours every week. 13% of you said less than 5 hours, and 6% said between 20 and 30 hours. And don't forget those 2% of you that said you work 40 or more hours per week, which is awesome. But let's think about it another way. Based on these numbers, 92% of you only have 4 hours or less during the work week to focus on your RNF business. So how are you supposed to prospect, follow up, train new consultants, have three-way calls, plan events, so on and so on and so on in that small amount of time? Well, don't worry, that's why Chase is here. He's going to tell you all about it. So Chase, before you dive in, why don't you take a moment to share a little bit more about yourself so we all know who we're talking to today.
Thanks, Joe, and I love that data. And I'm excited to work again with this group. So I'm Chase Willardson. I'm a business development manager here at RNF, and I'm on the Level Up team with Jeff and Joe. And as you can see from the pictures on the slide, I obviously married up. And that is, I'll talk about this a little bit later, but she's actually my accountability, or one of my accountability partners. We have two little angels, Jack and Charlie. However, Jack, you can see him touching Charlie. He's a little bit more devious as he gets closer to 3. What I will say is, with a growing and young family, something that we've had to learn how to do is manage our time. And so let's dive right into this topic. So I mentioned before that we're going to talk about time management. I want to go right into Pareto. So I want to start by talking about a man named Vilfred Pareto. He was an Italian mathematician who created a formula that identified the unequal wealth distribution of the population of Italy. So in this formula, it basically identified that 20% of the population of Italy held 80% of the wealth. But it didn't stop there. What it did for his work, but others recognized that this 80-20 principle led to actually most things in life. Really, that most things, if few are vital, and many are trivial. So what do I mean? 80% of sales are produced by 20% of customers, and 20% of products produce 80% of sales. Most people spend 80% of their time with 20% of their friends. And anyone who's ever been in management can attest that 20% of staff will cause 80% of the problems. And then I think the one that my wife would probably disagree with me the most is 20% of the clothes in your closet, or actually 80% of the clothes in your closet are only worn 20% of the time.
That is so true. And this concept really strikes a chord with me. It's also worth noting that most things don't perfectly follow that 80-20 ratio. Rather, this is an ongoing trend based on how things in life relate to each other. The key point that Chase is talking about is that most things in life, whether it be effort, reward, output, or clothes, aren't distributed evenly. Some people, some activities contribute more than others. So I want everyone to be mindful of the time they are spending and aware of the results they are producing. Speaking of results in your business, Chase, what about these business building activities?
So let's talk about some common business building activities and their results. Over the next week, I want you to be more mindful of how and what you're spending your time on. So what are some good uses of your time? So picking up the phone and calling people, sending a personalized reach out, three-way calls, voice-to-voice contact, referrals from PCs, and launching new consultants effectively. You'll notice that these are all activities that directly tie into growing your business. If you spend your day focusing only on these activities, I have no doubt that your business will be stronger for it. On the flip side, let's look at some common activities that, while still important in their own right, you really need to be aware of the time you're spending on them to make sure it's proportional to the results you're seeing. In my mind, the number one culprit is scrolling through Facebook. Next, spending an hour crafting that perfect message. Shopping for team gifts. I could browse Amazon and Pinterest for hours, but it's really the time, is that time going into my business, or is it spent on something that's not going to add immediate value? Taking the perfect selfie or perfect picture of your breakfast. I'm definitely guilty of this as well. Scrolling for inspirational quotes. Color coding your spreadsheets, but doing it multiple times during the week. So again, think about what you spend your time on, what is the best use of your time, and what is not.
This is so interesting, and it is so true, as Chase mentioned. I think we're all guilty of some of those things a little bit more than some others maybe. But let's think about this for a moment. Each of you are at a truly exciting time in your R&F journey. You're no longer the new kids on the block, and as your business grows, as your team grows, so will those responsibilities. This is the point where a lot of consultants start to move into what we call management mode. The focus switches from you to your team, and I'm not saying you don't need to focus on your team. In fact, we have an entire call centered around setting your consultants up for success. What I am saying is that you need to prioritize. And at the top of that list, you should find prospecting, following up, running and taking care of your business. So with so many responsibilities, activities, things to do, how do you prioritize everything? Well, I know Chase has a book that he's dying to talk about on this.
So with so many responsibilities and activities, things to do, how do you prioritize everything? So Brian Tracy wrote a book called Eat That Frog. And it's essentially a collection of habits you can work on to avoid something I've certainly never been guilty of before, procrastination. The title of the book is actually based on a story that Mark Twain told, where he talks about eating a frog first thing in the morning. I'm sure some of you are wondering what on earth I'm talking about and what those people in California eat for breakfast, but bear with me. If you eat a frog first thing in the morning, it's probably the worst thing that you'll do all day. We just talked about a variety of business building activities, so how are you supposed to decide where to start? Which frog do you eat first? Well, I want to encourage you to pick the biggest, the ugliest, the grossest frog, the activity you want to put off the most, and eat that frog first. For a lot of us, it's picking up the phone and making calls to our chicken list, right? The people who are too chicken to call. I worked in sales for years, and I understand the fear and doubt inside your head that prevent you from making that call. And I recently watched Despicable Me Too. Do you remember the scene where Gru is trying to call, he's trying to call, what was her name, Lily. Anyways, we've all felt that before. What is your ugly frog? What's the one thing that produces great results that makes you the most uncomfortable? Maybe it's your chicken list. Maybe it's reaching out to a new network. I challenge you to make the first thing on your to-do list. I challenge you to make this the first thing that you do on your to-do list in this next week. Okay. So we have some time management tips before we go into the next section. Now, these are tips that we've observed and heard from many consultants that have not only found success here in Level Up, but have found success long beyond Level Up, Level 5 plus leaders, Premier 5, Elite 5, and RFXers. So set your office hours and make your team aware of them. Plan your week and know that life happens. I use this quote that Mike Tyson says that everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face. In other words, you have to be prepared to improvise when things happen unexpectedly, because they always do. Minimize your distractions. We talked about visualizing your why. Do you have something that helps you remember what your why is? And the example that Joe shared, do you put it in front of the television so that when you're thinking about watching television or decompressing, are you using that prime prospecting time, those 4 hours that you have during the week, to really grow your business? Don't waste time comparing your business and experiences to anyone else, because as Theodore Roosevelt once said, comparison is the thief of joy. So prioritize your personal business before your team. And I know that sounds a little bit interesting, but create a list of your important business building activities. And then, as I just talked about eating that frog, find the ugliest, grossest, biggest frog, the hardest one, and do the hardest and the worst first. Now, something that leaders often forget, because we'll get in this business and we know what it's like to receive support from a sponsor or not to receive this support. It's okay to say no. So don't try to take on the world, right? Be intentional with how you're using your time. Also, we're talking about being intentional. Be intentional with social media and with Facebook. And then as leaders, if you haven't already recognized this from your sponsors or from other teams that have strong uplines, if there is an inspiration flowing through the leader, get inspired and take action. And you can do that by taking action with those business building activities, and then you'll see results, and then people will be inspired by the results you're seeing. Now write down the one thing that you can, as a result of all the things, or after talking about time management, all the things that Joe and I have talked about so far with time management, I want you to think about what is the one thing that you could do this next week that would have the biggest impact in your business. So I'm going to take maybe 5 seconds. Write that thing down. What is that? And do that thing as many times as you possibly can in this next week. Mother Teresa once said, "Yesterday is gone, tomorrow has not yet come, we have only today. Let us begin." Now we talked about time management, and if you combine that with proper planning, you're really on the road to success. Of course, I'm talking about goals here. And to walk us through this, I'm going to turn it over to Joe to talk to us about goals and how we can kind of take our time management and put it into our goals and really make our goals effective.
What a wonderful segue that was. Thank you, Chase. Now, I love the frog metaphor from Brian Tracy's book, and I want to share with you another quote from Eat That Frog. He says, "Goals are the fuel in the furnace of achievement." And that's what I want to talk to you today, about setting goals and a great concept to keep your goals actionable. Now, goals play an important part of my life, whether they be fitness, financial, or professional goals. I always have my goals written down, and I visit them weekly to see what I need to do to achieve them. Currently, I have a fitness goal to run a half marathon in February, which is creeping up here, 15 minutes faster than my personal best. And here's a picture of me competing in my last marathon, and this is back in Columbus, Ohio. In case you're wondering, the guy behind me has been my best friend since kindergarten, and I will personally make sure he never forgets who won this race. Now, I set goals for myself to train harder, to eat better, and to rest more. And that was the only reason I was up at 5 this morning running 5 miles in the rain. Otherwise, I would have hit snooze about 800 times. Now, I check in on how I'm doing with these goals every day to keep myself on track. And without these goals, I wouldn't be able to stay focused on the task at hand, which right now for me is running 13.1 miles faster than I ever have before, which is a crazy sentence. So when I think about goals, I think about a quote from direct selling guru Jim Rohn. He said, if you go to work on your goals will go to work on you. Whatever good things we build end up building us. It's great to have goals, but we certainly need to make sure that they're building you up to where you want to be. That's why when I go about setting goals, I always begin with what I ultimately want to end up achieving. From this point, it's a bit easier to set goals for along the way that will help you get there. Setting goals is like planning a route on a map. We first must know where we are and then decide where we want to be. There may be some obstacles along the way, but if you know your ultimate destination, it will be easier to get there. As we go through the process together of setting goals, think about how everything we discussed today pertains to your business. Let's take a look at where we are and where we want to go. Oh, and by the way, I know what you're thinking. When did Pixar find the free time to create this animation for Level Up? Believe it or not, I made this fun little graphic all by myself, just for you guys. On to it. A great way to plan a route to achieve your goals is by working backwards to set your goals. This concept is outlined in Gary Keller's book called The One Thing. For those who don't know Gary Keller, he is one of the founders of Keller Williams Realty, the largest real estate company in the US. In this book, he discusses the concept of setting what he calls goals to now. The basic premise is that to achieve your long-term goals, you need to create a short-term action plan. Think of your goals as the what and the action plan as the how. This action plan will help keep you on track. It will make your goal more manageable, and it'll provide some checkpoints along the way to evaluate your performance to your plan. Now, some of you, if you want to reference that survey we sent you initially when you register for Level Up, we asked you some questions about where you are and where you hope to end up. So let's take a quick moment to review. At the time you registered for Level Up, 61% of you reported that you are a Level 3 EC. 24% of you are Level 4 ECs. 9% are Level 2s. 5% are Level 5. And we have a few that are Level 1. We also asked each of you to state a goal. We wanted to know what your personal roadmap to hitting Level 5 looks like. 48% of you said you're hoping to become a Level 5 by the end of Level Up or before. 28% of you are hoping to be a Level 5 by Convention 2017. 14% of you are hoping to maintain your Level 5 leadership, and 10% of you are shooting to be a Level 5 by the end of the year. Let me pause here for a moment. That is awesome. It is fantastic to hear that everyone has Level 5 on the mind, and I can't wait to help you all get there. But what does that mean from an action standpoint? What needs to happen for you to achieve your goal? Your action plan will be very unique to you, as your starting point and the timeline that you set out to hit your goal will probably vary. But if we just look at the majority, those biggest pieces of the pie, I can infer that a lot of you are level 3s hoping to become a level 5 by the end of Level Up. Now, let's go through an example of setting those goals to now using this group. And if you're not part of this group, don't worry, the principles can be applied to your own personal goals as well. For this group though, here's what it would look like. You are currently a level 3 EC with your 4 EC legs. You identified your goal to be a level 5 by the end of Level Up, which means you would have 8 EC legs. Now, gaining 4 EC legs in 12 weeks is definitely much easier said than done. So how do we make this plan more actionable? Let's add 2 checkpoints along the way so that we have a more attainable goal. A great goal after 4 weeks would be to become a level 4 EC with 6 EC legs. After 8 weeks, while maintaining level 4 while gaining an EC leg will set you up to achieve your ultimate goal, becoming that level 5 with your 8 EC legs. Whether you know it or not, you are actually setting SMART goals by breaking down your activity this way. Many of you have heard of SMART goals, but let's take a closer look at what that means. SMART means that goals should be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. First, a goal should be specific. What is it you want to accomplish? For example, setting a goal to just do better is not a great goal because there is nothing specific about it, even if the right intent is there. Now, goals need to also be measurable. Make it quantifiable. Not having a specific amount tied to a goal will make it difficult to determine if you have actually achieved it. For example, if your goal was to make more money, did you achieve this by earning an extra $5, $500, $5,000? You'll only know if you quantify your goal. You will also need to make sure that your goals are attainable. Is what you're hoping to accomplish in the quantity you're hoping to accomplish in attainable given your resources and circumstances? You need to make sure that your attitude and aptitude are on par with the goal you're trying to reach. In other words, are you both willing and able to do what it takes to achieve the goal at hand? Here's a goofy example for you. Having the goal of becoming the Queen of England is not a great goal because it's not attainable given the fact that 1, you live across the pond, and 2, you, I say this with an asterisk, probably have no royal blood. Now, hand in hand with attainable, goals need to also be relevant. Your goals for your RNS journey probably will not be relevant to your fitness goals, and that is perfectly fine. Looking back at my previous example, if you were able to become the Queen of England, is that truly relevant to your Rodan and Field business? To me, that sounds way more like a conflict of interest than anything else. Lastly, goals need to be time-bound. The time frame you hope to accomplish a goal should follow the same principles above. It should be a specific time in the future that is attainable and relevant to what you're hoping to achieve. Now, if your goal is to make the perfect Thanksgiving dinner, having that dinner completed in January probably isn't going to be of much use to you. Franklin Roosevelt once said, "To reach a port, we must sail. Sail, not tie at anchor. Sail, not drift." Setting SMART goals enables us to keep from staying stagnant or from deviating from the task at hand. SMART goals will help us sail. We all know that you don't just magically become a level 5. And that's why we place an emphasis on your business building activities here in Level Up. Using those activities will give us a great idea of what it will take to hit that level 5 goal by the end of this course. So let's take a look and see what that looks like. We know that we need 8 EC legs to hit level 5. But what does it take to get that one new business partner? After talking to many consultants and looking at data from previous level up classes, we have a pretty good idea of how many activities are needed. I want to emphasize though, that your numbers will be unique to your business and that you should always keep track of your own metrics and the results that your activities produce. Now, let's take a look at some of the results that we've seen. On average, it will take around 4 three-way calls to generate one new business partner. And like Chase shared with you last week, a three-way call is either a prospecting or a closing conversation you're having with either your upline or downline. Continuing on in our funnel, it usually takes 5 voice-to-voice contacts to generate one three-way call. And a voice-to-voice contact is a live conversation with a prospect, either on the phone or in person. Commonly, it will take around 10 reach outs to generate a voice-to-voice contact. Keep in mind that reach outs can be any type of personalized message, online, text message, or voicemail. Now, while this is a solid path to add one new business partner, in this example, we'll actually need 4 new business partners. That means to achieve our goal, we will need to have 16 three-way calls. And if you think that's a big number, just wait. To generate those 16 three-way calls, we will have 80 voice-to-voice conversations. And we're not done yet, folks. For those 80 voice-to-voice conversations, we'll have reached out to 800 people. For those of you who see those numbers on screen and are starting to think it might as well be 8 billion reach outs, let's make our goals a little smarter by making them more attainable and time-bound. Per month, that would put you on pace for 267 reach outs, 27 voice-to-voice conversations, and 6 three-way calls. And if that's still a bit too much for you to digest, let's break it down a little bit further. That would be 67 reach outs per week, 7 voice-to-voice contacts, and about 1.5 three-way calls per week. Now, if you look at these numbers per week, it's no coincidence that these numbers are awfully close to those weekly activity numbers we gave you last week. But if those still seem like big numbers, let's break it down by day. 10 reach outs per day, 1 voice-to-voice contact per day, and 1 three-way call about every 5 days. Now, I bet if I ask each of you right now, if you have ever had a day before in your RNF journey where you reached out to 10 prospects, talked to one on the phone, and had a three-way call, many of you would say that you have. What's great is that you have already proven to yourself that you're able to do this. But if you can sustain this behavior, you can see a potentially huge payoff in your business. What I have on screen now is a tool called your monthly plan. It's available in the BizDev library in Pulse, and it is incredibly helpful. This tool helps you focus on the numbers that drive your business while setting smart goals for key business building activities. Before filling this in though, it's important to know exactly where you are today and what will be necessary to get you to your ultimate goal. As I mentioned before, your business is unique and your goals will be different than those of your peers. It will be important to take a look at your metrics and you can see just how many new consultants you'll need to enroll. From there, it will be easy to identify what activities and how many of them you should strive for. I encourage all of you to fill out your monthly planner and know exactly what it will take to get you to your RNF goal. Now, Pablo Picasso was known for his abstract art, but I would like to share with you a very concrete quote from him regarding goals. He said, "Our goals can only be reached through a vehicle of a plan in which we must fervently believe and upon which we must vigorously act. There is no other route to success." Use this concept of setting goals to now as your vehicle to success. Monitor your daily, weekly, and monthly activity and ask yourself, is what I'm doing today going to be enough to get me where I want to be tomorrow? Now that we have a great understanding of what makes a good goal, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Chase to talk about accountability partners and the role that they play. Take it away, Chase.
Thanks, Joe. And I would say that the accountability partners section is really the glue that holds time management and goals together. Now, you've probably heard this before. We don't make this journey on our own. And that's something that I've heard from the field many, many times before. So as I talk about accountability partners, I want you to think about what you need from an accountability partner and then what you can offer. And as you do, you'll understand how you can help others, and then you'll let them help you right on your RNF journey. Okay, so before I dive into kind of some best practices around accountability partners, there are a couple of examples that came to mind when preparing for this. So the first, although most people know the name of Steve Jobs very well, a name that's not quite as well known until the recent movies or books, is actually Steve Wozniak. He was in many ways an accountability partner to Steve Jobs. They balanced each other out, focusing on the strengths that each brought to the table. With Steve Wozniak's technical background and Jobs' vision of how personal computing technology would change the world, they created what we know today as Apple. The next example, similar to the last example, many people have heard of Bill Gates. Well, not as many people are familiar with Paul Allen, although in this picture he looks more like a father figure than an accountability partner. He was Bill Gates' accountability partner. They met in high school, kept in contact, and then later connected to work on marketing and basic programming language interpreter, which we know today as Microsoft. They also understood each other's strengths, weaknesses, and goals. And their partnership led them to create what we know today as Microsoft. Now, before you start thinking that you have to be a guy in tech to have a accountability partner, let me actually highlight the accountability partnership you're probably the most familiar with. Our doctors, Dr. Katie and Dr. Kathy Fields, who met in medical school at Stanford. Now, that's not an easy medical school to get into. And I'm sure throughout medical school, they had some trying times, some times where it was difficult. I'm sure when they created the brand Proactive, I'm sure when they were in their individual practices that it was difficult for them. And so they've had highs, they've had lows, and then they've had some in-between. But their accountability partnership has lasted over 30 plus years, which is absolutely amazing. Now, this accountability partnership has also led to the creation of Rodan Fields, which we are so grateful for. But here are some best practices that we've seen and observed and heard from Level Up participants, from accountability partnerships outside of Level Up as well. But I want to focus on the accountability partnerships that you'll be forming here in Level Up. So first, sharing your why. Last week we had a call to talk about your why. This is the secret sauce to the business. Understanding what motivates people, what is their purpose, what is the reason they get up in the morning. Understanding that is so powerful. So sharing that with each other and being vulnerable with each other. Next, schedule a weekly touch base. Now with time management, one of the things that I just want to highlight real quickly. So as we talked about eating that frog, one of the best things that you can do, you've probably heard this before, is actually writing it down or scheduling on your phone. So with accountability partnerships, it doesn't matter if it happens at the same time every single week, as much as it does you have it on the calendar for every single week. So you can move it around and make sure that you touch base on a weekly basis. Also, setting complete weekly challenges. Now, one of the great things about Level Up is that we invite you to complete challenges on a weekly basis. And many of those will include accountability partners moving forward. Now, also share your strengths, your opportunities, and goals. What are the strengths that you bring to the table? What are some areas where you feel like you need some help? When you look at examples of Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, Steve Jobs didn't have the technical background to create what Steve Wozniak did. But then Steve Wozniak didn't have the vision to see what it could become. Now, what are your strengths and what are the things that you want to work on or develop or polish a little bit more? And then after we've talked about goals and setting goals to now, what are the goals that you have? What do you want to accomplish in the next 12 weeks? And then make it time bound. Now, the reason we say making it time bound, I shared 3 examples of accountability partners that have lasted for 30 plus years. But I would say the majority are accountability partnerships that do not last that amount of time. And especially in this business, we give the suggestion, we've heard also from consultants, that 90 days. Give it 90 days and kind of reevaluate after that to see if this is the best use of time for both of you. If this accountability partnership is benefiting and edifying both you and the partner or the group of people. Sometimes, and you'll see in just a second, that it's not just an accountability partnership, but maybe an accountability group. Okay, so what we've actually done is we have, and you've seen the data from the surveys you filled out when you're registering for Level Up, we have assigned you Level Up accountability groups. So, and I think it's at least 3 people, and some of you might have 4.
It's all going to be either 4 or 5 people.
Okay, 4 or 5 people. And what we've done is we assign you based off of your current title, the goals you have, how many hours you have to work, and if you have another job. So by using those things and grouping them together, we've identified people that are in the same track, that are running at the same pace. If you think about Joe's marathon, you're running for a 7-minute mile. Okay, well, we're going to put you in the group with the 7-minute mile folks. If you're running a 12-minute mile, we're going to put you with the 12-minute mile folks, based off of how you answer the survey. So what I will say before we move on to the weekly challenges is that the consultants that have leveraged these relationships in Level Up and then after Level Up are the ones that not only have seen Level 5 leadership, but have done it in a healthy, in a meaningful, and a sustainable way. And they've been able to grow to Level 5 plus leaders. And we now have a couple of examples of people that have hit Lexus volume that have participated in Level Up because of leveraging accountability partners. Okay, so weekly challenges. We've heard a lot of information on the call today. So for your first personal challenge, connect with your accountability group and discuss 80-20 principle with them. We'll actually share that list on the Facebook page after the call, so you'll know who in the group is part of your accountability group. Okay. Second, set your goals to now. Based on your activity and results over the past 3 months, determine the daily activity required to achieve them. As Joe broke down those goals, you understood what you need to do today to achieve your goals in 12 weeks. Now that actually makes it actionable. That makes it something you can do today and act on it today. Okay, team challenges. The first team challenge, share the 80-20 principle with your team and then discuss what is their most and least productive use of time. Theirs might be different than yours. Maybe reach out, maybe 3-way calls, maybe voice-to-voice contact. What's the one that has worked the best for you? What's the one that's worked the best for them? Share your goals and the activities required to achieve them. Help your team understand that activities are needed to achieve their short and long-term goals. Remember that the activities are the things that are going to help you to not only hit Level 5, but to maintain that Level 5 plus leadership. And then third, share accountability partner guidelines with your team. Although this was a little bit more specific to Level Up, these principles and these guidelines apply to accountability partnerships outside of Level Up. So invite them to find an accountability partner if they don't have one, or if they've had one and have had one for longer than 90 days, maybe look for a new one, or maybe look for a group of other people that are running at their same pace. For the prospecting challenge, add 10 to 20 new names to your prospecting list. So this week, we want you to think of friends from high school. Think of people that you were in high school with that you haven't talked to for a while, or maybe you've talked to recently because of the holidays, or received a Christmas card, and reach back out to those people.
Awesome. Thank you, Chase, for being a part of this call. I understand, everyone, that this is one of the most, how should I say, information-packed calls that we have. And this is actually the one that consultants tell us they will go back and rewatch more often than any other call in the entire Level Up course. So if you feel like you couldn't write fast enough, if you need to revisit anything, I would certainly invite you all to do that. And also reach out on the Facebook page if you have any specific questions, if you want to dive a little bit deeper on this. That's why we have a community, so that you can talk with your peers, so you can chat with me and really get to the bottom of making sure that we have good goals in place, we have a good time management strategy, and we're relying on our accountability groups the right way. So thank you all so much. I hope you're as energized as I am right now to get out and start setting some goals. I will have this posted shortly for you all to watch the recording, and feel free to reach out. Have a great day. Bye-bye.